hours, the death penalty in America. The debate reaches new levels. Tonight, a critical look. Is there justice for all? Power struggle. Can anything be done to control soaring energy prices? The government gets involved. Also, Las Vegas. Why is there no energy crisis here? In depth, extreme danger. A deadly weekend for firefighters in New York. Tonight, a new focus on safety for those on the front lines. And Lifeline. Will this device save your life? A new way to detect cancer.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Tomorrow in Terre Haute, Indiana, in the same federal prison where Timothy McVeigh was executed, a convicted drug lord is scheduled to die, but unlike McVeigh, he's fighting to the 11th hour. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected his appeals, and tonight the White House said there will be no act of presidential clemency. But the case of Juan Paul Garza has again raised the issue of the death penalty and justice. It's not a question of his guilt, but whether the death penalty is the only form of punishment in his case and many others. We begin tonight with NBC's Pete Williams.
His legal appeals now exhausted. Former Texas drug kingpin Juan Garza awaits execution tonight in the same building where Timothy McVeigh died a week ago, moved there just before midnight. Garza faces death for killing one of his own drug runners and ordering the deaths of two others, thinking they were informants. In this videotape, he pleads for presidential clemency.
I regret what I've done. I accept full responsibility for my actions.
His lawyers say the death penalty system is racist, noting that of the 19 men on federal death row, 14 are black, 3 are Hispanic, and just 2 are white. But the Justice Department says he got a fair trial, that the judge, the prosecutor, and at least 6 of the jurors were Hispanic. Garza's lawyers also say jurors were never told that if they decided against the death sentence, the only other punishment would have been life without parole.
We can't be confident that he would have received a death sentence if the jury had been properly instructed that if he did not receive death, he would spend the rest of his life in prison.
But the courts have rejected that claim, saying that was not the only other sentencing option. And while Garza's pending execution stirs up new protest over the federal death penalty, the states struggle with a different question, whether to outlaw capital punishment for the mentally retarded. The Texas governor yesterday vetoed such a ban, saying that decision should be left to individual juries.
And it would have told the citizens of the state that we don't trust you. We don't trust you to serve and pass judgment on your fellow citizens.
President Bush says he thinks the courts protect mentally retarded defendants. Even so, his brother Jeb, the Florida governor, last week signed a bill barring the execution of retarded defendants there, bringing to 15 the number of states, along with the federal government, that now ban it. Lawmakers in Texas today say they'll try again.
Just as we don't execute children in Texas, I don't think we should execute people who have the mind of a child.
But the Supreme Court may soon have the last word. The justices consider this fall whether executing the mentally retarded is unconstitutional, cruel, and unusual punishment. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
And in Florida, there's another dramatic example of how the system can go wrong. And once again, the key was DNA, the genetic code that is turning out to be the most powerful evidence in law enforcement. Here's NBC's Kerry Sanders.
He was once considered one of Florida's most notorious killers. Jerry Frank Townsend spent 22 years in prison, convicted of 6 murders and 1 rape. In each case, he confessed.
How did you kill her? How did she die? Well, then, I killed this here. It's the same thing I told you back there. What's that? I killed her with a little thin wife.
But even now, detectives say 46-year-old Townsend, with an IQ of an 8-year-old, would confess to just about anything.
If you ask him something and he doesn't give you the right answer, well, then you tell him what you want him to say, and then he'll repeat it.
Now, 22 years later, DNA evidence clears Townsend of all crimes. Those same DNA tests point to Eddie Lee Mosley, someone police now believe is a serial killer.
DNA has the beauty of not only showing that one person didn't commit a crime, it also shows that Mr. Mosley committed this crime.
Others recently cleared in Florida by DNA evidence. Frank Lee Smith on death row for 14 years. died of cancer before his scheduled execution and before DNA evidence cleared him of his crime. So concerned this is not an isolated case, NBC News has learned the Department of Justice is offering $500,000 to prosecutors across the country to come up with a plan to review thousands of cases where DNA could make a difference.
Our system cannot afford to have truly innocent people languish in its prisons or await execution on death row. And if it takes a $3,000 test to prove that, my God, we certainly should pay it.
Either pay for it in dollars or potentially pay for it in lives. Kerry Sanders, NBC News, Fort Lauderdale.
And that tropical storm that gave Allison a bad name and a lot of America wet misery has finally drifted out into the Atlantic. But the 12 days of bad weather it left behind were destructive and also deadly. The death toll is at 45 tonight, including 6 who died in a flood-related fire in an apartment complex in suburban Philadelphia. More than 11,400 are homeless as a result of the storm. 36,000 homes were damaged or destroyed. The total damage cost from Texas to New England now estimated at $2.2 billion, and it's still climbing. Tonight, cleanup efforts are underway around Philadelphia, the last area to take a really hard hit. 9 inches of rain over the weekend sent rivers and creeks over their banks. Pennsylvania could join Texas, Louisiana, and Florida on the federal disaster list, all as a result of Allison. Tonight, the federal government is taking a big step into the power crisis in the western states. A federal regulatory agency is putting limits on the prices that wholesalers can charge for electricity. At the same time, the political blame game is heating up again. We get the latest now from NBC's Robert Hager.
As temperatures rise in California and another round of rolling electricity blackouts is threatened, federal regulators today vote to broaden restrictions on prices for wholesale electricity there, at least through next summer. Previously, they limited prices only in California and only during emergency shortfalls. Today, they extended those limits to apply to 11 western states and all the time.
I think the timing is right. I think the scope is right. And I think the relief will be right for the people of California and for the people of the West.
The decision by a previously obscure federal agency called the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission affects only wholesale prices. So with power companies still near bankruptcy, this month's residential bills are still going up.
I was just horrified to see it, actually. And I'm just expecting the new one, and I'm more nervous about it.
It's taking money out of my pocket, food out of my mouth. What do you want to say? Gas out of my car? Sure, everything.
The regulators have been urged by some to keep hands off, and by others like California Governor Gray Davis to go even further for all-out price controls. But the bipartisan agency chose instead a middle ground. Why middle ground? Because the limits it set today are flexible. Generators may be allowed to exceed them, enough to draw kind words from President Bush even before the vote.
A mechanism to, as I understand, a mechanism to mitigate any severe price spike that may occur, which is completely different from price controls.
Bush adversary, California's Governor Davis, under attack today in ads by a group called the American Taxpayers Alliance.
Davis ignored all the warning signals and turned a problem into a crisis. Grayouts from Gray Davis.
Governor Davis blames the ads on power supply companies. As for today's decision by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission,
today, the FERC has finally taken a step in the right direction, but there's much more they should do.
And with more blackouts still expected, it's still unclear whether today's federal action will ultimately bring relief. As an anxious nation watches too, hoping the electric problems of the West don't spread to other areas. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
And a threat of another kind, this one facing Americans overseas, an alleged terror plot to attack a U.S. embassy, a plot that was cut off in time. NBC's Jim Miklaszewski joins me now from the Pentagon with the latest. Jim?
Tom, U.S. officials tell NBC News tonight that a small band of suspected terrorists had planned to attack the U.S. embassy in Yemen by blowing it up as early as next week. About 10 Yemeni nationals were rounded up over the weekend and a small quantity of explosives taken into custody. Now, apparently the group was planning to somehow infiltrate the embassy and plant the bombs. After the threat was first detected by U.S. intelligence sources 9 days ago, the U.S. embassy in Yemen was closed. And U.S. FBI agents who had been there to investigate last October's bombing of the USS Cole were pulled out of the country. The information was quickly turned over to Yemen authorities, who took the suspects into custody over the weekend. Tom?
Is there any connection to Osama bin Laden with these terrorists?
Well, U.S. officials are saying tonight that there's no clear-cut evidence that links these suspects directly to Osama bin Laden. No clue he gave the orders. But they're also equally convinced that if they can peel back the cover on this one, they'll find bin Laden behind it.
Thanks very much, NBC's Jim Miklashevsky tonight. Suspected terrorist in Yemen once again. Up next, NBC News in depth. Fighting fires. A Father's Day tragedy here in New York brightens the spotlight on a dangerous job.
Every call may be your last call. When you come to work in the morning, you hope everybody goes home together.
The always dangerous jobs of fighting fires. How are this country's bravest trying to minimize the risk? That's in depth tonight. Later, no energy crisis in this city of lights as the rest of the West is struggling with power problems. Las Vegas keeps the lights on, which brings us to our nightly news question. How much did it cost last year to light up Las Vegas? The answer is still ahead. Highest alert. U.S. forces on notice. The threat of a possible terrorism attack overseas. How real is the danger? Clearing the air, protecting national treasures from pollution, and targeting gas-guzzling SUVs. Tonight, the government gets ready to act. Mixed messages. 2 weeks, 2 different tests, 2 different results. What's a driver to think? Tonight, we sort out the differences. And in-depth, Lifeline. This machine can detect diseases before you're even sick, but there are risks. The marvels and hidden dangers of the full body scan.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Throughout the Middle East tonight, American forces are at their battle stations. U.S. ships have been pulled out of a port, and military intelligence is working overtime to determine if threats against Americans are real. In this world of terrorism, the Pentagon is taking no chances tonight, especially after the bombing of the USS Cole and the announcement this week of the indictment of 13 Saudi Arabians for the bombing of the American military barracks in Saudi Arabia. NBC's Jim Miklashevsky has the latest now for us from the Pentagon. Jim, what's going on there?
Tom, U.S. officials are taking this latest threat very seriously because they say the warnings came from several different sources, all saying the same thing, that an attack against Americans in the Persian Gulf is imminent. U.S. military forces throughout the Persian Gulf are at the highest state of alert tonight at ThreatCon Delta. All Navy ships have been ordered to put out to sea, weapons locked and loaded. 2,200 Marines cut short an amphibious exercise in Jordan. Thousands of American forces in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia combat ready. Why? Sources tell NBC News U.S. intelligence intercepted at least 3 separate threats in the past 24 hours. But all were chillingly similar, threatening attacks against American forces in the Persian Gulf. No specific targets were named, but each threat did mention the same day, next Monday, June 25th. That's the 5-year anniversary of the terrorist bombing of Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia, killing 19 American servicemen. Only yesterday, the U.S. indicted 14 suspects for the Khobar bombing. And 2 days ago, the release of a video from indicted terrorist Osama bin Laden, calling for a new wave of attacks against American targets. And tonight, the State Department issued a travel warning for all Americans to beware of the increased terrorist threat. Now, officials here admit this could all be a false alarm, but no one's willing to take that chance. Tom?
Thanks very much, NBC's Jim Miklashevsky at the Pentagon tonight. And the Bush administration today put certain power plants on another kind of alert. The new administration gave final approval to a federal rule to help clean up the air. And as NBC's David Gregory reports tonight, the Bush White House doesn't need any more negative reviews on the environment right now.
Today's proposed order is meant to clear the air at the country's 156 national parks. Tourists who make nearly 300 million visits to the parks a year come to see pristine views now spoiled by haze created by emissions from coal-burning power plants, even those hundreds of miles away. On a clear day at Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee, you can see for 100 miles. But when the smog sets in, that range is cut down to 20 miles. This order, first proposed by the Clinton administration, would force utilities to put in place tougher pollution controls. Environmental groups hailed the action today, but are still skeptical, citing the reliance on coal in Bush's energy plan.
It's going to be quite a challenge for the administration to reconcile their desire to favor their coal-producing friends, and yet at the same time try to deliver on the promise of cleaner air in our national parks.
Today's announcement comes one day after the president visited an Alabama state park promising more money for land conservation. Recent polls show eroding confidence in Bush's commitment to the environment. A misguided perception, say top advisors.
When we keep taking the actions that back up the words, they're going to have to give him credit for what's happening.
For now, the president is getting mostly blamed, and the biggest culprit is his energy plan. This week, the Republican-dominated House, citing environmental worries, voted against oil and gas exploration off Florida's coast and in millions of acres of national monuments. Politically, top advisors admit the president seems to be getting outmaneuvered by his environmental critics. Today's order, part of an effort to neutralize the damage that only seems to be getting worse. David Gregory, NBC News, the White House.
And another battle over energy and the environment is shaping up over cars and SUVs. Most Republicans have long opposed efforts to force automakers to make vehicles more fuel efficient. But many of them are now changing their minds as gas prices rise and energy becomes a hot political issue. Here's NBC's Robert Hager.
Likely soon, the first big effort in a quarter century to force improvements in the miles per gallon rating of vehicles, particularly gas-guzzling SUVs and pickups, to conserve energy and cut down pollution. The chairman of the House Energy Subcommittee today.
The federal government should consider whether it's reasonable to increase the fuel economy of cars and light trucks.
For SUVs and pickups, from an average 20 miles a gallon now to perhaps 23, would make them more expensive but save 1 million barrels of oil a day. And a second proposal today to also improve mileage by encouraging alternative energy vehicles through tax breaks. The newest, combo, gas and battery powered. The Toyota Prius and smaller two-seat Honda Insight. Let's take a look under the hood of the Honda Insight. And it's all centered right here. A 73 horsepower, 3-cylinder gasoline engine and a separate electric motor. And a tiny computer inside there that senses when to switch back and forth. Powered not by the car's regular battery, but by power generated off the use of the brakes and stored in electric batteries kept under here. Unlike older pure electric cars, hybrids don't have to be plugged in for recharging. They can go fast and are 90% cleaner than other cars. And the mileage? Prius owner Jeff Foreman.
Well, I'm just thinking how lucky I am to have a car that gets 50 miles a gallon.
And the Insight gets up to 70. But the hybrids cost $20,000, and that's more than other cars that small. And if U.S. automakers follow through on promises to make a few bigger hybrids, SUVs, in 2 or 3 years, it'll be even more expensive.
The market share isn't going to come until we get hybrids into more mainstream vehicles and bring the price down.
For now, there are only 16,000 hybrids in the U.S. compared to 17 million other vehicles. Why experts say for real progress towards saving energy or clearing pollution, forcing automakers to increase the gas mileage is the way to go. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
Now to another contentious issue involving pickup trucks and safety ratings. The government has released new truck crash test scores, and the Ford F-150 is the best-selling vehicle in America. It scored well. This just weeks after a separate set of data that called into question the truck's safety. What should consumers believe? Here's NBC's Lee Thompson.
Consumers are now making their vehicle buying decisions based on safety, and car companies are touting the results of crash tests.
Better overall than Insurance Institute crash tests.
But today, there's confusion over the Ford F-150. The government has announced it is giving 5 stars to the popular truck, its highest rating. But the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, funded by the insurance industry, gave the F-150 its worst rating.
This is not survivable space anymore.
How can there be such a disparity between the two tests?
The government's test does not really test the structural design of the vehicle because the whole front end takes the load. In this test, only part of the front end's taking the load.
The government tested the F-150 by sending it head-on into a flat wall at 35 miles per hour. It's a very good measure of how well the seat belts and airbags work. The Institute crashed the truck at 40 miles per hour, slightly off-center, similar to something that might happen car to car at an intersection.
This is as bad as it gets in terms of crash performance.
Is this a fatality?
One possible outcome could be a fatal injury.
If you owned this truck, what would you do?
I'd get rid of it. I wouldn't put my family, my wife, or myself in a vehicle like this.
Ford said today the two tests are very different, but they do complement one another. It says in real-world accidents, government statistics show the F-Series trucks do an outstanding job in protecting occupants. Ford is considering a design change in its F-150, but says to pass the Institute's test, it may have to compromise the truck's ability to pass the government's test. The Insurance Institute points out many cars pass both tests, and there's no reason why pickup trucks can't be designed to pass both as well. Lee Thompson, NBC News, Washington.
And in Texas, Andrea Yates, the Houston mother who confessed to police that she drowned all 5 of her children, was in court this morning. She was formally charged with capital murder and asked for a court-appointed attorney. The children will be buried together in Houston on Wednesday. And another horrible crime involving children is stirring up difficult questions tonight in Great Britain. People there are outraged at the decision to release 2 boys who murdered a toddler. NBC's Ron Allen has more now from London.
Tonight, there's shock and disbelief across Britain as 2 of the nation's most notorious young killers gain freedom. Robert Thompson and John Venables were 10 when a mall security camera saw them kidnap 2-year-old James Bulger in February 1993. A court convicted them of torturing the toddler to death, then leaving his body in the path of a freight train. The community was so enraged, a riot nearly erupted when police took the 2 boys to trial. Today, Britain's parole board, after secret hearings, decided both, now 18, are no longer a danger, have shown remorse, and should be released from a youth detention program with new identities. Bulger's mother fought a desperate court battle for the teenagers to be sent to prison.
She absolutely is devastated by this news. She believes that she and her family are the ones that are being punished.
Are you angry? Are you irritated?
In Bulger's hometown of Liverpool, many don't think the teenagers have been punished enough.
Because I don't think that justice has been served.
Now, Bulger's parents are urging anyone who can to expose the killers' new identities. But the British courts are taking drastic steps to protect them, making it illegal to show pictures of them as adults on television or in newspapers. Already, police are investigating how a recent photo of Thompson may have been released to the public. And other reports say people sympathetic to the Bulger family are offering a bounty or reward for anyone who can track down the 2 young men.
There will be witch hunts, people looking for them. I don't agree with that, but they will go out, and they will have to live looking over their shoulder all the time.
Even James Bulger's father has been quoted as saying he will hunt them down. The British courts have given Thompson and Venables freedom, but they may be on the run for the rest of their lives. Ron Allen, NBC News, London.
Still ahead tonight, American tourists living it up in Cuba. Why are so many flocking to what is supposed to be forbidden territory? Up next, NBC News in depth tonight, medicine's new early detection system, full-body X-ray scans. But is this really overkill? First, the nightly news question. What year was the first X-ray equipment used in the United States? The answer when we come back.
Relax, we got supplemental insurance.
What are you talking about?
If we get injured in this work, we're covered for things like lost pay and other expenses with this.
With what?
Plus, they pay you cash. Great, huh?
Who does? Aflac.
Aflac. Without it, no insurance is complete.
Ask your doctor about Celebrex.
All mothers are working mothers.
And precious time shouldn't be wasted worrying about your household appliances. Your local Brand Source store makes appliance shopping easy. Great value, financing, and selection allow you to focus on the more important things in life. And knowing we've made your life a little easier is one story we like hearing again and again. Brand Source. We're your neighborhood expert.
Maalox Quick Dissolve challenges Pepsid Complete. Who neutralizes more acid? Maalox dissolves quicker. Maalox has more mouth-watering flavors. Maalox. 3 ways the right choice is Maalox Quick Dissolve. Agree or it's free.
Feeling a little nervous about getting on the bus?
Yeah, I don't want to go.
You have to go to school.
I don't know if I want to go, though.
That'll be fun.
I want to hang out with you.
Girls' first day. Be nice. First days are always a little scary.
I'm going to miss you.
It's gonna be a bride.
Chevy Malibu. It's dependable. Just like you.
Sunshine.
Chevy Malibu. We'll be there.
NBC Friday. You've met Tom and his wife Linda, and his 4 other wives, and his 30 children. Finally, a verdict in the tangled legal battle. Dateline tonight.
NBC News in Depth tonight, medicine's controversial new wave, the full-body CT scan, a sophisticated X-ray that can turn up health problems early on. First, the answer to the nightly news question. What year was the first X-ray equipment used in the U.S.? It was way back in 1896. Now, the technology is so advanced, doctors can get an almost perfect picture of your body's inner workings. So why the controversy? In Depth, here's NBC's chief science correspondent, Robert Bazell.
Robert Boyle saw some ads on TV and decided to protect his health. He would spend more than $1,300 to get a full-body scan. High-tech computerized X-rays called CT scans from his neck down to his legs to try to find early signs of cancer, heart disease, and other problems.
I think it's just good common sense for a person to get a good, clear indication of what's going on inside their body, especially when you start getting older.
Sounds reasonable. A highly detailed look at much of the body. And many of the dozens of new for-profit clinics that offer it advertise heavily. But the practice is controversial because no one has completed tests of the long-term risks and benefits. Dr. John Cardella was part of an FDA committee that looked into the issue.
There's not good scientific evidence at this point that demonstrates any effectiveness of this whole-body CT screening procedure.
The American College of Radiology says for patients with no symptoms or family history of disease, the tests will find lots of insignificant things that will result in increased patient anxiety, unnecessary follow-up examinations and treatments, and significant wasted expense.
There's not much the FDA or professional societies can do about the proliferation of whole-body scanning. Once a device like a CT scanner is approved, doctors can use it for almost anything they want.
And the biggest concern of all, radiation. A full-body scan exposes a person to about 260 times as much as a conventional chest X-ray.
Patients who come in for screening, CT examinations, if they do it in a repeated fashion, are setting themselves up for an increased risk of cancer further down the road.
At Inside Track, the Beverly Hills clinic where Boyle went, the owners say the radiation danger is far less than potential life-saving benefits.
We don't have that data yet, but we're one of the companies, I think, that will really begin to develop that data.
But until the proof is in, many experts say, healthy people like Robert Boyle are paying a lot of money for an unproven benefit. Robert Bazell, NBC News, New York.
Still ahead tonight, remembering a gifted actor who made Americans laugh. Think Carol O'Connor.
You don't know nothing about Lady Liberty standing there in the harbor.
Hate mosquitoes? Get what mosquitoes hate. Get Thermacell, the repellent that works.
In U.S. Army tests, Thermacell is proven to be an effective area repellent system against mosquitoes and other flying insects.
Now get the same protection in your backyard. Just slide in the repellent mat, click it on, and in a few minutes you have a cell of protection. Covers an area this big. Thermacell is cordless. Take it camping, fishing, anywhere. Thermacell, it works.
Thermacell's available at Kmart, Sears Hardware, Frank's, and Meijer.
There have been a lot of headaches in this house, but only one headache medicine, Tylenol. the #1 choice of doctors for headaches, because sometimes the difference between noise and music is all in your head.
Since people spend so much time in their SUVs, engineer Steve Karpowicz filled the all-new GMC Envoy with all the comforts of home, like climate control with 25 degrees of separation, digital Bose audio, and available hands-free calling from OnStar. So whether you're enjoying a drive or just enjoying your driveway, Steve says there's no place like Envoy. Introducing the all-new GMC Envoy.
I'm here to demonstrate how Whiskas savory nuggets with crispy outsides and soft centers compare to the typical dry cat food. Observe the difference at impact. Now ours. Trying this again.
These cats are totally ruining the experiment.
Whiskas with savory nuggets. What cats want.
Ask your doctor about Celebrex.
Ever notice how many Tums you have around because your heartburn keeps coming back? There's a neater idea. New Pepcid Complete. It works as fast as Tums, but lasts 7 times longer, all in a chewable tablet. New Pepcid Complete. Just one, and heartburn's done. For a free sample, call 1-800-4PEPCID or visit our website at PepcidComplete.com.
Sunday, the long-awaited Patients' Bill of Rights, nurtured by Democrats, is at DOA in Bush's White House. Senators Harkin and Lott face off. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Preventing mistakes in surgery. NBC Nightly News, Saturday.
On Wall Street today, the market fell, led by warnings from the drug giant Merck about its earnings. As a result, the Dow was off more than 110 points. NASDAQ lost almost 24 on the day. For the week, the Dow was down 19 points, but NASDAQ was up for the week more than 6 points. And the federal government has a helpful reminder as the travel season begins to heat up. Stay out of Cuba. U.S. tourists are officially banned from that island. Restrictions could get even tighter next month. But it turns out all that is making it only more attractive to Americans. NBC's Andrew Mitchell tonight reporting from Havana.
It is only 90 miles from the U.S., yet forbidden territory to most Americans. Officially on the State Department's list of terrorist states, off limits to American investors and business. So what are all these Americans doing here?
What you do is you call the Coast Guard and they fax you a sheet and you list on it the passport numbers and the names of everyone on board.
Thousands of U.S. citizens visiting Cuba on so-called cultural exchanges, but often looking a lot like ordinary tourists.
So you can come with universities. There's all different ways to get here legally.
With their dollars, Americans bring their influences and culture, from movie star Kevin Costner to rock and roll, illegal here in the 60s, now the latest craze for Cuban teenagers. Even in this Havana park, a statue of Lenin. Not the communist leader, but the Beatle, paid for by the same government that once banned his records from Cuban radio. Everywhere you go, there are new signs of economic growth. An estimated 5% last year, enough to keep Castro's regime in power, but not enough to make life easy for his people. Olga Garcia, at 60, retired from the trade ministry, struggles to live on her pension, the equivalent of $6.47 a month.
You need money for food? For food, for clothes, for shoes, for meals.
So like most Cubans, Olga works on the side, in her case teaching English in her home to Cubans.
Even though more than 100,000 Americans will visit Cuba this year, as long as the U.S. continues to ban trade and investment, this country will never be able to truly grow and prosper.
And under the embargo law, next month President Bush must decide whether to tighten the sanctions, unless Castro meets U.S. demands to hold free elections and release political prisoners. Demands Cuban leaders say the U.S. has no right to make.
The State Department has no right whatsoever. It's not their business to to pretend that another country should be different.
Possibly setting the stage for a new crisis with Castro, even as Cubans and Americans establish new bonds. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Havana.
In a moment, saying goodbye to Carol O'Connor.
You know, if it weren't for my wife's arthritis, she wouldn't be here today. She's always depended on extra strength Bayer for arthritis pain. Nothing worked better.
When Mom had a heart attack, she knew to take original strength Bayer, like the doctor said.
Bayer not only took care of my mom's arthritis pain, aspirin actually helped save her life.
Knowing all that Bayer can do, why would anyone choose another pain reliever?
Bayer, take it for pain, take it for life.
Maalox Quick Dissolve challenges Pepsid Complete. Who neutralizes more acid? Maalox dissolves quicker. Maalox has more mouth-watering flavors. Maalox, 3 ways the right choice is Maalox Quick Dissolve. Agree or it's free.
Be adventurous. Be plugged in. Be involved. Be powerful. Be yourself. Because it's your choice, your voice, and your attitude. Today's AARP.
Funny how one change inspires another.
Olay Daily Facials. First, you get the very best in cleansing. Then, it improves skin's condition day after day with exclusive Olay moisture.
Change is good. They say change is good. I say change is great.
Olay Daily Facials. Proven to cleanse and exfoliate like a facial.
Ah, time to relax. What a time for bad heartburn. Try Extra Strength Mylanta. It works on tough nighttime heartburn fast. So go ahead, relax, if you can. Extra Strength Mylanta.
Does it sometimes feel as if life's obstacles come after you? Introducing the all-new 2002 Escalade. The most powerful SUV in the world. Escalade. Make obstacles obsolete. Cadillac.
Headliners and Legends, Monday on MSNBC. Her movies, her mom, her marriage. The life of Brooke Shields on Headliners and Legends, Monday at 10 on MSNBC.
Sunday, in a remote East African lake, millions of flamingos flock, only to be stalked and killed as hungry baboon prey. Explore Sunday on CNBC.
Before he was Archie Bunker, he was Carol O'Connor, a gifted actor, thoughtful and intelligent, the antithesis of the character that he created. It is a tribute to his life that when he died last night, he was both Carol O'Connor and also Archie Bunker, distinctive and memorable. Tonight, his All in the Family's creator, Norman Lear, and fellow actor Bob Reiner remember in their own words.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but you are one dumb polar.
Probably the most indelible character ever to be seen on American television. It was on Saturday night, and everybody changed their schedules to accommodate watching All in the Family. And so then on Monday morning when they came to work, they all had this shared national experience.
If you're going to have a change of life, you got to do it right now. I'm going to give you just 30 seconds. Now, come on, change.
For the first time, and All in the Family changed the way in which people's family lives were depicted. And it opened the dialogue every week about race relations and the women's movement and the war in Vietnam, homosexuality.
I never said a guy who wears glasses is a queer. A guy who wears glasses is a four-eyes. A guy who is a fag is a queer.
He loved playing the character because it allowed him to expose the ignorance of bigotry.
3.
his contribution to television and American laughter indelible. The world that lives today will never forget Archie Bunker. He'll always be there. And that was Carroll O'Connor.
Headliners and Legends will have a look at the life of Carroll O'Connor tonight at 10 Eastern on MSNBC on cable. That's nightly news for this Friday night. Don't forget Dateline tonight at 9. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll be taking some time off. Brian Williams will be here. You have a wonderful summer.